the heart of the bustling city, nestled among the neon-lit streets and smoky alleyways, there stood a Kungfu restaurant that had been a fixture for as long as anyone could remember. Its red lanterns swayed gently in the night breeze, casting eerie shadows on the worn cobblestone pavement. This was where I had spent the last 5 years of my life, toiling away as an employee, and where my mundane existence would soon take a terrifying turn. The restaurant bore the name Dragon's Delight, and it was famous not only for its mouth-watering cuisine, but also for the enigmatic aura that clung to it like a second skin. I had heard the whispered tales from coworkers and customers alike, stories of unexplained phenomena and eerie happenings that had plagued the establishment for generations. Yet, I had always dismissed them as superstition, attributing them to the vivid imaginations of those who frequented the place. It was a hot and sticky summer evening when the first sign of something amiss occurred. I had just finished setting up the tables, wiping them down with a damp cloth as the oppressive humidity pressed against the windows. The faint hum of conversation drifted in from the dining area, punctuated by the sizzle of stir-frying in the kitchen. As I moved through the dimly lit corridor that connected the dining area to the kitchen, I noticed a peculiar sensation crawling up my spine. It was as if I was being watched, but when I glanced over my shoulder, there was no one there. I shook my head, attributing it to exhaustion, and continued my duties. The night grew darker, and the restaurant buzzed with activity. The aroma of Kungfu delicacies filled the air, blending with the din of laughter and chatter. I began to feel that eerie sensation once more, like unseen eyes watching my every move. It was unsettling, but I couldn't afford to let my imagination run wild. Hours passed. As I neared midnight, the restaurant began to empty. Tables were cleared, dishes washed, and the staff gradually retreated to the break room, leaving me alone in the dining area to finish closing up. It was during this solitude that the next strange occurrence unfolded. I was wiping down the last table, my rag gliding smoothly over the polished wood, when I heard a soft whisper. It was so faint that at first I thought it was my tired mind playing tricks on me. But then it came again, a hushed voice just beyond the edge of my perception. I froze, my heart pounding, and strained to listen. The whispering continued, a series of unintelligible murmurs that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. My fingers tightened on the damp cloth as I scanned the empty restaurant. There was no one there, no source for the sound, but the feeling of being watched had intensified. Trembling, I backed away from the table, my eyes darting nervously around the room. I had to convince myself it was just my exhaustion, that the stories of this place had finally gotten to me. But then, just as suddenly as it had started, the whispering ceased, leaving only an eerie silence in its wake. My heart still racing, I hurried to finish my tasks and join my coworkers in the break room. I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that lingered in the pit of my stomach. I wanted to share my experience, to ask if anyone else had heard the whispers, but I didn't want to appear foolish. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences continued. Objects would move of their own accord, dishes would shatter without explanation, and occasionally, the flickering of the restaurant's overhead lights would create unsettling shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. My coworkers and I shared nervous glances, but none of us dared to speak openly about the growing unease that permeated Dragon's Delight. One evening, as I was tidying up the dining area, I caught sight of something in the corner of my eye, a reflection in one of the restaurant's ornate mirrors. I turned to look, my heart nearly stopping in my chest. There, in the reflection, I saw a figure standing at the entrance to the restaurant just beyond the threshold. It was a tall, shadowy silhouette, and though I couldn't make out any details, I knew instinctively that it was not one of our customers or staff. Panic seized me as I turned to confront the intruder, but when I reached the entrance, there was no one there. I stumbled back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Had I imagined it? Was the lack of sleep finally taking its toll on my sanity? I couldn't be sure, but the terror that had been building within me since that first whispered encounter was now a roaring inferno. That night, I couldn't sleep. The mysterious events had escalated to a point where I could no longer ignore them. I decided to do some digging, to uncover the secrets that Dragon's Delight held within its aging walls. As the first rays of dawn broke through my window, I headed to the city archives. Hours turned into days as I pored over records and newspaper clippings, and what I discovered sent a chill down my spine. Dragon's Delight had a history that dated back over a century, and it wasn't always a restaurant. In the early 1900s, yes, it had been a gambling den and opium den, notorious for its association with criminal organizations. The more I delved into its past, the more I uncovered tales of violence, betrayal, and death. It seemed that the restaurant had witnessed unspeakable horrors, and its dark history had left an indelible mark on its very soul. It had changed hands multiple times, but its curse, it appeared, remained unbroken. Determined to unravel the mystery, I returned to Dragon's Delight that evening with newfound resolve. I confronted my co-workers with the information I had uncovered, and together, we decided to conduct a séance to communicate with the restless spirits that seemed to haunt the establishment. As the night settled in, and the restaurant was once again emptied of patrons, we gathered in the dimly lit dining area. Candles flickered on the tables, casting eerie shadows on the walls. We held hands, trembling, and began to chant softly, calling out to the spirits that lingered within. At first, there was nothing but the sound of our own voices and the soft hum of the city outside. But then, as we continued our chant, a chill descended upon the room and the air grew heavy with an oppressive presence. The candles flickered wildly, and the room seemed to darken despite their feeble light. A voice, faint and distant, whispered through the room. It was the same voice I had heard that first night, but now it was joined by others, a cacophony of sorrow and anger. They spoke of betrayal, of lives cut short, and of a curse that bound them to this place for eternity. As the séance reached its crescendo, a gust of frigid wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles in an instant. We were plunged into darkness, and in that blackness, I felt a presence drawing nearer, an unseen force that seemed to wrap around us like a vice. Panic set in, and we scrambled to our feet, trying to find the exit. But the restaurant had become a maze of darkness and despair, and the spirits' whispers grew louder, more insistent. I could feel their anger and sorrow pressing in on me, threatening to suffocate my very soul. And then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, it stopped. The darkness lifted, and the room was bathed in the soft glow of the rekindled candles. We were shaken, disoriented, but alive. We knew then that we had uncovered the truth of Dragon's Delight, that the restaurant was indeed haunted by the tormented souls of its past. It was a place steeped in darkness, a place where the sins of the past had never been laid to rest. In the days that followed, we decided to close Dragon's Delight for good, to release the spirits from their eternal torment. It was a painful decision, for the restaurant had been a part of our lives for so long, but it was the only way to break the curse that bound it. As we boarded up the windows and doors, we could feel the spirits' presence growing weaker, their whispers fading into the distance. And as the last nail was hammered in, sealing the restaurant's fate, we heard a final, mournful wail that sent shivers down our spines. Dragon's Delight had closed its doors for the last time. The horrors we had witnessed would haunt us forever, a reminder that some mysteries are best left untouched, some places best left unexplored. And so, the Kungfu restaurant that had stood for generations, a place of both culinary delight and unspeakable terror, faded into obscurity, its history buried beneath the weight of its own dark past. We walked away from that place, forever changed, carrying with us the knowledge that some horrors are all too real, even when they have no need for the paranormal to terrify.